Hello! Uh, if you're here, I'm assuming you know who I am, but if not, my name is Christy and I run Grim Poppy Designs and the Grim Poppy YouTube channel. This video is a little bit overdue, but to be fair, when I started the YouTube channel, I wasn't 100% sure I was going to do anything with it. I originally did the YouTube channel so that I could have a place that would showcase how I do covers. In the day of AI, obviously it's so easy to point a finger and say, oh, that's AI. So starting the channel was solely for that, just so that the authors I'm working with can see the covers that are being created and how they're being created, because I don't see any other way that it's more legit than seeing the cover come to life, other than like watching it live, and obviously that's not an option when it comes to things like customs and stuff like that. So, and then pre-mades, obviously, because you don't get much input in the creation of a pre-made, I started recording the pre-mades so that they were legit. Like, you can see how it comes to life. That was all this channel was going to be. But then things changed, and it turns out that people actually just enjoy watching how things come to life, and they have questions after. And so this video is just introducing myself, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about what this channel is going to be going forward, and I'm going to answer a few questions. So first off, as I said, my name is Christy. I began Grim Poppy Designs back in 2020, possibly 2021, but I believe 2020. I started doing my own covers pretty much since the beginning of self-publishing, and I've been self-publishing now for almost 10 years. So I was doing my own covers pretty much out of necessity, and then friends of mine started coming to me and asking me for help with cover design or fonts or things like that. So I started doing that. So it took one of those people telling me that I should consider making pre-mades or, you know, charging for customs, and I was like, I have no idea what I would charge. And I don't have any idea of like what I would create. But I started looking around at other pre-mades that were offered, especially a lot of Google searches, looking through different sites and stuff, and realizing that in the horror genre, which is what I predominantly write in the first place, there weren't a lot of covers that screamed horror to me. Like, I grew up going to thrift stores and grabbing, you know, old zebra paperbacks and these covers that usually didn't even have anything to do with the book itself, but the covers were drawn so beautifully that I knew it was a horror book, and like I wanted to grab the book simply because I loved the design. So that was and has been the biggest driving force when it comes to designing pre-mades. Now granted, horror has all kinds of subgenres, and different styles tend to go with those subgenres. But originally it was solely trying to make covers look more horror than they had been. Because if you walk into like a Walmart, granted, you're not going to find many horror books unless Stephen King has decided to take a break from writing crime fiction and publish a horror book. But the covers, they're not the best, in my opinion. Obviously, there is a market for them, because there is a reason why, if you look in the like romantasy genre, all the covers look very similar. Like there's obviously a marketing reason that they look that way. But I've always been about the aesthetic and the art, and I like for things to look a certain way. And I've gotten lucky because there's a lot of people, obviously, that like the way that I like things to look. Because Grim Poppy has been very successful over these last couple of years and has only grown in ways that I never imagined when I started selling pre-mades. Like, I remember the first pre-made I sold. It was a super simple design. I made it on Canva using their assets. I sold it for $20 to someone that I didn't know, but they loved the design. And being part of that process was something that I really enjoyed. And it's something that I still enjoy. Grim Poppy started for the indie writer. Grim Poppy is always going to be for the indie writer. It's why when I started selling pre-mades, my costs were at $20 for a front only and $40 for a full wrap. I started customs at $40 for a front only and then $80 for a full wrap. So like, we've gone up in price over the years, of course, but any time that I've made a price change, it's always been with the idea of, does this sound reasonable for someone who is paying out of pocket to publish their book completely? Because like, and also small, indie publishers and stuff, like, yes, they're handling the costs, but that doesn't mean that it's, easier for them because they're taking a chance on you. So in the indie space, I know that there are price guides for, traditional publishing, like there's so much that you should charge for a design or for editing or for formatting and stuff, but I work with indie authors. I don't work with traditional publishers. Granted, if I did, I'd probably charge differently because a bigger publisher is bringing in more money, but I work with indie writers and indie publishers, and my goal has always been to be accessible as I can be, while also not putting myself out too much. Like, I'm okay with working harder to make more money that way, but I'm not okay with putting in hours and hours of work and not getting paid at all. I mean, that's just the thing, right? But I also know that the people that I work with are not affording, $400 or $500 covers. And if they are, it's going to be very lucky if they're making it back. Like, they have to be one of the, breakout stars of the indie world to possibly be making that kind of money back, on top of paying for an editor or a formatter or marketing and things like that. So that's why Grim Poppy has always been priced the way that it has, and that's why it will remain the way that it is. Any price change that I decide to do for anything will always be posted so it can be discussed, because at the end of the day, I'd rather have authors and work than more money. I've told this to a couple of different publishers that I work with, that they send me bulk covers to do at one time. And they're like, oh, I feel so bad about, putting in, giving you so much work to do at one time. But honestly, I wouldn't know what to do with myself if I had more free time. So I'm okay with being busy. And I guess, I complain a lot to friends about cover design work, but it's not the work itself that ever bothers me. I actually really enjoy designing and drawing and creating concepts and coming back and forth with these ideas. I love when authors come to me and they're like, hey, this is what my book's about. Here's some ideas that I have, but have fun. I love creating covers, and I know that may not sound genuine to some people because it is still a job, but I do. I love designing covers, and I love, especially when a cover comes completely together. I feel like most of the time I go to start a cover and I'm looking for assets and I'm like, I don't know if this is going to work. It's always that I struggle with, is going, can I do this? But as most people that know me personally know, I'm very competitive with myself, and I'm a perfectionist, and I was a gifted child, I was in enrichment classes. I was told I was special. So I love pushing myself. And when someone comes to me and they're like, hey, have you ever done this before? Do you think that you could give it a shot? I've told many people, like just last night, someone came to me asking me if I would be interested in trying to draw a fantasy map. And I was like, I've never done that before. But send me your ideas and, you know, I can try. Because if there's one thing that I love to do, it's challenge myself. And cover design is a very good way to do that. But now that I've kind of rambled on about Grandpappy itself, some things that y'all probably already know because I've mentioned these things a million times if you follow me on socials. Now I want to talk about the channel. Because, as I said, it first just started as a way to have like proof in front of your eyes of how your cover is coming to be, what is going into the process. You can clearly see what assets I'm using. And, you know, it's just a way that if someone comes to you and tries to make, you know, an AI type of accusation, you have proof in front of you. And if something happens to have been AI that was used, you have proof in front of you that you can say, hey, this thing is wrong and I can go change that. And, you know, all is well. Like, it's really not that deep, guys. The other thing that I want to do with this channel is I want to start giving you tips and showing you how to create covers yourself. Obviously, you can watch the cover creation videos and you can see all of the things that I'm doing to create a cover, but I want to start doing videos where I take an idea and I don't use the time lapse on like Sketchbook, and I go through the whole process. I show you the places that I look to find the assets. I show you what I do to try and vet that they're legitimate, to how I pick which brushes and lightings and things that I do to put into these covers, where I find fonts at, how I decide what font is going to go on there. I also want to do like a video showing you guys how to create a cover completely for free, because it's possible. That's what I used to do. Like, now I pay for different subscriptions for different assets and programs so that it's easier, because I feel like I need to. I feel like I need to invest into my art. So that's what I do. But I want to show y'all how to do like easy, you know, free covers as well. Now, maybe they won't look quite the same as, you know, the things that you're paying for, but you don't have to have a crappy quality photo or resort to using AI if I showed you some of the tricks that I used to use. So, like, that's one thing I want to do on this channel. I also have a book that I am working on that is going to have a accompanying sketchbook, and I want to start posting videos of all of the sketches in that book. It's going to be a huge project. It's going to take forever. I believe that the sketchbook that I'm using has like over 200 pages, so it's going to take a while, but I want to show you through that process because it's such a big passion project of mine now that I cannot wait to show you, even though I did start recording one yesterday and my dogs and cats are going crazy. I did start recording that yesterday, and the recording process is a little weird. It's definitely different than recording on the tablet, but we'll get there. I want the Grandpappy YouTube channel to be the same as the Patreon and the same as my Facebook. Like, I want to hear what you guys want. That's at the bottom line. That is, again, what Grandpappy is about. It's about you. Like, what you want to see, what you want to learn, or what you want to discuss. Like, we can have conversations about cover arts and things like that. Like, I'm absolutely fine with just talking art all day if that's something that interests y'all. At the end of the day, Grandpappy is always going to be about you guys. What you want to see, what you want to be able to buy, what you want to know. So feel free to suggest any type of video you want, or if you guys are just like sick of seeing my face and you just want to stick with cover creations, like, that's completely fine too. I'm cool with not having to get made up so that I can be on camera. Okay? So now I'm going to answer some of your questions I asked over on Facebook about, what y'all want to know. So we got some questions here, and the first one is from, sorry guys, the first one is from Cassandra O'Sullivan Sakar. We worked together on quite a few covers. Absolutely love her. She is the sweetest. I actually worked with her this last week on a secret little Christmas cover. It's sitting in my unlisted folder on here, as so many of the customs are. There are so many covers sitting in my unlisted folder right now that I am dying for people to see. And you guys are taking too long. Anyway, she asked, I'd love to know how your creative processes are similar and or different between your artwork and writing. Okay, I love this question. I'm going to stick with the things that I have control over. So not so much like customs, but like me deciding to design a cover and me deciding to write a story. Both definitely start the same way, with me looking for inspiration. Sometimes something just immediately hits, and obviously, as any other creative type of person knows, those are amazing when something just comes completely to you in one piece. You don't have to go looking for anything, like it's just there, laid out in front of you. Those are amazing, but those don't always happen, and I feel like that's often the way that people describe having writer's block. There's also similar with, art being like blocked creatively, basically. But I don't believe in writer's block or, an art block or anything like that. But I think it's always comes down to your motivation and your inspiration. And those things don't always go hand in hand. Sometimes you just have to get up and do it. Like that, you got people to impress, I recently had that conversation with my boyfriend because right now I'm actually struggling to write, and it's 100% a motivational thing. But I was able to crank out a short story for Desiree Horton's upcoming Halloween anthology, and I loved it. It was one of those ideas that it did just come to me. I had no motivation to write it though, but like it came to me fully formed. I knew what I wanted to say. I didn't want to write it. I did not want to sit down and write it, but I did, and I got it written within like a couple of days. I started on one day, and then I didn't write on it for a while, and then like another day I just sat down and I finished it. And I sent it on to him, and he was like, "This is the best thing you've ever written." He was like, "It's perfect in my opinion." And I was like, "Oh, okay." And he was like, we've got to find some way to keep you writing, because you wrote this, like this is amazing." I was like, "Yeah, but I wrote that because I didn't want to let anyone down." And sometimes that's a good enough reason. Sometimes a good enough reason is that you have a deadline and you have to get it done. I struggle with like depression and the big sads, and there are definitely days where I look at my work schedule for covers with the revisions or the customs that I have, and I get overwhelmed and I feel burnt out, and I'm like, I don't want to do any of this. But I constantly have a thought in my head of, I don't want to let anyone down. So you get up and you do it. And sometimes that is what you have to do. So that definitely is similar between my writing and between my cover design. On the inspiration side, I get inspired for covers the same way I do with writing. I look at art. I go for a walk. I spend time outside. I do things. This is gonna sound a little weird considering the genre I'm in, but I intentionally try to find beautiful things because beautiful things inspire me. So I will go online and I will search through art and I'll find beautiful pieces of art. One artist that I absolutely love is Stefan Quaidel. I believe that's how you pronounce his last name. Literally, I would just scroll through his art, and there was a piece that he drew that completely inspired my novel Seth. Like the art piece as itself, completely. I knew what I wanted to write the moment that I looked at it. I do the same thing with art. But it's definitely the same in that I just go and look for things that I find beautiful, and I hope that something inspires me. And sometimes it works, and sometimes it doesn't. But at the end of the day, I think that both, I just think about the fact that I've got to create something or I'm going to let someone down, even if that someone is me. Speaking of Desiree Horton, she asked the next question, which was, what's your favorite cover you've ever made? I don't like being asked that question. And do you start with an image or a concept when you made pre-mades? That kind of ties into, the last question. Like, I definitely do use a bunch of concepts. There are sometimes I just scroll and see something and I'm like, that's an awesome idea. I want to do something similar. And like, that can obviously kind of go back and forth between whether you're copying someone or whatever, but I feel like I don't look at something and want to create the exact same thing I just saw. There's another pre-made that is available this week that has a witch holding some tarot cards in her hand, and that actually was inspired by an image that I found on 123RF. And like, I liked the idea. The idea was a girl, light eyes, cards in the air with her hand, and I was like, I want to do something like that, but I want to do a witch, and I want to do specific tarot cards, and I want it to be these pretty, like, blue colors and things like that. So I definitely do use a lot of images, like, as concepts. Or even, I'll ask questions online and be like, what do you guys want to see? And I'll go, with that. As far as my favorite cover I've ever made, I feel like choosing one of y'all's covers isn't fair. So I do think that my favorite cover that I've ever personally made is Boo. Boo was a lot of work. Boo actually was drawn 2 times because I originally drew Boo in my sketchbook and colored it in with colored pencils, and I didn't fully like how that looked, even though that was the look that I was originally going for. So I then transferred it over to Sketchbook on my tablet, and I, redrew it so that it was crisper and smoother. So Boo had a lot of work, and I really still love that book cover, and it seems like you guys do too. But I also recently redid covers for 2 of my books, The Breaking of Mona Hill and Seth. Seth's cover too. And I also just finished the cover for Possum, and I really like that one too. Like, I'm getting out of this question by choosing my own covers. So if I had to pick my favorite cover I've done, I'd say right now it's Possum. But overall, I still think it's gonna be Boo. And Boo was just special. It's been special. So I choose Boo. Betty Rocksteady, who is an amazing artist. Oh my god, I love her stuff. Every time I see she posted, I am just so in love with it. She has such like a cartoony style. I love it. I'm not saying this to be like derogatory, but it's so simple but so beautiful. Like, I am so envious of her because she's just amazing. Okay, so the fact that she asked me anything is awesome, and love you, Betty. You are absolutely an inspiration. She asked, what's your favorite thing to do art-wise? What's the most fun? My favorite thing, this might sound weird, but my favorite thing to do art-wise is draw women. yeah, if I go into graphic design, my favorite things to do is, age things. I love adding textures to things and aging them up. But when it comes to drawing, my favorite thing to do is draw women. I love the female body. If you come to me wanting a cover that focuses mostly on a woman and ask me to draw it, I'm most likely going to say yes. I love drawing women. I love drawing sexy women. I love drawing feminine women. I love drawing gory women. I love drawing the female body. And I know that probably sounds a little weird, but I do. I love the female body. I love drawing it. I love the curves and the detail and the face. I enjoy, which maybe this is more what Betty meant, I really enjoy drawing eyes. I think eyes are a very effective asset in an art piece. So I love drawing eyes. I also love drawing lips, but they don't come as naturally to me as eyes do. And recently I've actually started to enjoy drawing hands more, which, that's a little crazy. I did a cover for L.M. Kaplan. He does Broken Brain books. I've been in one of their anthologies and I've done all of the anthology covers. I recently did a design for him of, well, actually I probably shouldn't say because it's secret, but it was a female body and I loved it. She was gorgeous in my opinion. I really hope that I get to share that video because it's beautiful. Then Brian Stubbles, he has a cover coming out of mine sometime soon. He asked, well, he had questions. He asked, what are your influences or favorite artists? What advice would you give someone who has a background in art but has never designed a book cover? Okay, as far as influences and artists, like in the indie scene, obviously Betty is definitely a huge inspiration. I love seeing her art. There is also an artist that I find on Facebook. I post him all the time. I believe his name is Roberto Diaz. He does some really grotesque type of art, and I've done a couple of pieces inspired by that, actually. I'll insert his art versus the ones that I've done here. I really love his work. Stefan Koidel. I am such a huge fan of Stefan Koidel. Miyazaki, obviously. Like, I am a huge Studio Ghibli fan. Ghibli? But those are what I grew up with. I grew up with anime. That's how I started drawing, was because of anime. So, those, I still have such a huge love for those. And Vivzy Pop in her animation teams, like, I am a gigantic Helliverse fan. So I love the cartoony style, even though I don't feel as confident in cartoony styles. I've done a couple of things that are like cartoony for certain people, like especially Angelina Krause, my chaotic little girl. But I've done some cartoony stuff for her. I recently did something for Tasha Reynolds. I don't feel quite as confident in those, but I love cartoonish styles. And then advice that I've given someone that has a background in art but has never designed a book cover. If it's for your own book cover, my thing is always, what is your book about? What is something that is so simple but also effective? So breaking down like a key scene or a key element is always what I'm going to go for when it comes to a book cover. With Possum, obviously, like a possum or an opossum is a main central character of the book, but also, Possum, it involves, journal entries, and it involves, sickness, and it's very gothic in nature. So when I went to do my cover, I made a possum my central figure, but I also added in elements of all of those other things so that they fit with the book, but they also don't give anything away. And that's all I've got for you guys today. I thank you for coming to my channel and listening to me ramble. I hope this video is not awful, and I really look forward to seeing where the channel goes. So, I love you guys. Bye!